Welcome back, everybody. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really important topic, especially for anyone whose lives have been touched by cancer in any way. We're talking about, all those popular diets out there and how they fit in with, cancer treatment and recovery.
That's a big one.
It is, right.
Yeah.
And we're really excited to be focusing today on insights from the experts over at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. I think a lot of folks, when they hear the word diet, they immediately think about losing weight.
Right.
But when you're talking about cancer patients and survivors, it's like a whole other world, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, nutrition is just so vital for supporting the body's, ability to heal and stay strong during and after cancer treatment.
For sure.
It's not just about counting calories. It's about getting the right nutrients at the right time.
Well, let's get right to it. Should people who are actively undergoing cancer treatment, should they even be considering dieting at all?
Well, technically, I guess, in a way, we're all on a diet, right? In the sense that we all eat, we all have a regular pattern of eating. But I think what people usually mean when they say dieting is following this very specific set of rules and restrictions.
Yeah.
And, that can be a slippery slope, especially when you're dealing with all the challenges that come with cancer.
It's like, trying to squeeze everybody into the same size outfit, right?
Exactly. One size fits all rarely works when it comes to clothes, and it definitely doesn't work when it comes to nutrition, especially for cancer patients. Everybody's body is unique. Their needs are going to change throughout their treatment. So that's why it's so crucial to have personalized guidance from a registered dietitian.
Yeah, professional.
Or, another qualified healthcare professional who can really assess you as an individual.
Okay, so one size fits all is out. But, there's a gazillion popular diets out there, right? Keto, intermittent fasting, all the things.
All the buzzwords.
Yeah. Are any of these actually safe or even, beneficial for people who are dealing with cancer?
Let's unpack a couple of those. Let's start with keto, because I feel like that's the one that has been getting a ton of attention recently.
Oh, really?
It was originally designed to help control seizures in kids.
Interesting.
But now it's kind of morphed into this, potential cancer fighter, according to some. But the basic idea is you slash your carbs way, way down and replace them with lots of fats, which forces your body to start using these things called ketones for energy instead of glucose.
Okay, ketones, remind me what those are again.
Okay, so think of it this way. Usually your body runs on gasoline, right?
Okay.
And that gasoline is the glucose that comes from carbs. But when you're on keto, your body's okay, we're switching to electric power now. And those ketones, they're the electricity, that alternative fuel source that your liver makes when it's not getting enough carbs from your diet.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're basically flipping a switch on your body's energy source.
Mm-hmm.
But is that safe to be doing, especially when you're in the middle of cancer treatment?
Yeah, that's where things get a little tricky. There is some research out there that looks promising, particularly for certain types of brain tumors like glioblastoma. But we're still really in those early stages of understanding the effects of keto on cancer in general.
Right.
And another thing to remember is that keto is very high in fat. 70% or more of your daily calories are going to be coming from fat. And not all fats are created equal.
Yeah, totally. Avocado and olive oil seem like a very different story from, a bag of chips.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Healthy fats are great, but, overloading your system, especially with the unhealthy kind of fats, that can actually do more harm than good.
Especially when your body's already under so much stress.
Exactly, especially during cancer treatment. So yeah, it's not as simple as just cutting carbs and loading up on any old fat.
So it really comes down to working with a professional who understands your specific needs.
Absolutely. They can assess whether keto is right for you, and if so, how to do it safely. I had a patient, I'll never forget, he had gastrointestinal cancer, and he decided to try keto on his own.
Oh, no.
He ended up with terrible digestive problems. His body just couldn't handle all that fat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we had to really work with him to create a much more personalized eating plan that met his specific needs and took into account, his cancer and his treatment.
That's a good reminder that you really got to listen to your body.
For sure.
And get, individualized advice. Okay, so let's move on to another trendy one. Intermittent fasting. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Okay, so intermittent fasting, it's all about cycling between periods of eating and not eating. There are different ways to do it, but the most common one is called time-restricted feeding.
Okay.
And basically, you're just limiting your eating to a specific window of time each day, usually 8 to 10 hours.
So you're extending that natural fasting period you get while you're asleep.
Right. Precisely. But then you have other methods that involve these longer fasts. Like people will go 24 to 36 hours without food once or twice a week, or they'll like severely restrict their calories on certain days.
All many variations.
Right. So many ways to do it.
Now, I've heard people, talk about all the benefits of intermittent fasting, but I'm curious, are there downsides, especially for somebody going through, the rigors of cancer treatment?
Some research suggests that time-restricted feeding, like that shorter window, it might actually improve sleep
Okay.
and digestion and even help with weight management. But when you start getting into those prolonged fasts,
Yeah,
it can be risky.
I can imagine, because your body needs all the fuel it can get during that time.
Exactly. You're already under so much stress from the cancer and the treatment. So, depriving your body of essential nutrients for long periods, that's a recipe for trouble.
Yeah, doesn't sound like a great plan.
The biggest concern is malnutrition, really.
Right.
When your body's already working so hard, it needs a steady supply of those nutrients to keep going.
So maybe skipping that midnight snack is all right, but anything more extreme than that?
Yeah, I'd say those longer fasts is probably best to avoid. And again, this is where it's so important to loop in your healthcare team, right? Any changes to your eating patterns, they need to be in the loop. They need to give you the thumbs up.
Make sure it aligns with what your body needs at that moment.
Exactly. There's actually another interesting variation of intermittent fasting that I wanted to touch on before we move on. It's called circadian rhythm fasting, and it's starting to generate a lot of buzz in the research world.
Circadian rhythm fasting, huh? That sounds pretty intriguing. So is this connected to, our body's natural sleep-wake cycle? That whole circadian rhythm thing?
You got it. That's exactly what it is. Circadian rhythm fasting is all about aligning your eating window with your body's natural clock.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So are we talking about, early birds getting the worm here? Or, in this case, early birds getting the nutrients?
You nailed it. The basic idea is to concentrate your eating earlier in the day. So having your main meals during those daylight hours and trying to finish dinner a few hours before bedtime. It's kind of like that old saying, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely heard that one. So you're essentially giving your body that longer overnight break from digesting, right?
Yeah.
Which actually, that makes a lot of sense, just intuitively. It's amazing how this ancient wisdom that's been around forever is now being backed up by science.
Absolutely. And there's a growing body of research that suggests aligning our eating with those natural rhythms can have all sorts of positive impacts, like on our metabolism, our hormone balance, and even, how well we sleep.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating stuff. Okay, so we've talked about some of these popular diets that might need some adjustments or maybe are even totally off limits for folks who are dealing with cancer. But on the flip side, are there any diets out there that are generally recommended for people who are going through cancer treatment? What should those folks really be focusing on?
Yeah, great question. Well, the strongest evidence that we have right now points to the benefits of plant-based diets. And this can include a whole range of approaches, from vegetarian to vegan to the Mediterranean diet. But the common thread is that they all really emphasize those fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and, those healthy fats like olive oil.
So basically lots of colorful, delicious food that's just packed with nutrients.
Exactly. It's all about giving your body those good building blocks that it needs to thrive.
I love it. And it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility within that plant-based framework too, which is fantastic because, everyone has different tastes and dietary needs.
For sure. You don't have to go full-on vegan or anything to reap the benefits of a more plant-based approach. Even small shifts can make a difference. Maybe instead of having that sandwich on white bread for lunch, you could try a salad with some quinoa and grilled veggies.
Yeah.
Or, instead of reaching for that sugary snack, opt for a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts. Little things like that can really add up.
I love those ideas. Small changes, big impact. Now, what about people who were already, following a vegetarian or vegan diet before their cancer diagnosis? Can they safely continue on those diets during treatment?
In most cases, the answer is yes, but it's super important to work closely with a registered dietitian to make sure they're meeting all those specific nutritional needs throughout their treatment journey. Cancer and its treatments can really place extra demands on the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just about continuing their usual diet, it's about making sure it's really supporting them in the best way possible.
That makes total sense. So it's all about personalized adaptation, not radical change.
Exactly. A dietitian can help tailor that diet to meet their individual needs, taking into account account their medications and, any side effects they might be experiencing.
So it sounds like working with a dietitian is like non-negotiable for anyone going through cancer treatment, regardless of their dietary preferences.
I definitely say so.
Okay, so this is really helpful information. And it kind of leads me to my last question.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's thinking about trying out a new diet, especially during this time, are there any red flags they should watch out for? Like, what are some signs that a diet might not be a good fit, particularly for someone going through cancer treatment?
That's a super important question. And honestly, one of the biggest red flags to watch out for is any diet that's making these unrealistic promises, like, claiming that it can cure cancer. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. Yeah, no quick fixes when it comes to something as complex as cancer.
Exactly. And another red flag is if a diet is severely restricting entire food groups or essential nutrients, because that can set you up for deficiencies, which can be really harmful, especially during treatment.
Okay, so avoiding those really restrictive diets, good to know.
Yep. And finally, I'd say be wary of diets that promote super extreme or absolute rules like, never ever eating sugar again, because those types of diets can be really hard to stick to in the long run, and they can set you up for feelings of deprivation and guilt.
So it sounds like common sense and a healthy dose of skepticism are key here.
Totally. It's all about finding a sustainable way of eating that truly nourishes your body and supports your well-being. One that you can stick with long-term, one that provides you with all the nutrients you need to thrive throughout your cancer journey.
This has been such a helpful discussion. I'm really glad we got to take this deep dive into these popular diets and really explore how they relate to cancer treatment and recovery. What are some of the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to walk away with?
I think if there's one thing I want listeners to really take away from this deep dive, it's that personalized nutrition guidance is so important for anyone who's going through cancer treatment or recovery.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Absolutely not. What works for one person may not work for another. Everyone's different. Everyone's cancer journey is different.
So it's not about, just jumping on whatever diet bandwagon happens to be rolling by.
Nope.
It's about figuring out what actually works for your body.
Yeah.
What nourishes you, what helps you feel your best during a really challenging time.
Exactly. And that's why I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have those open and honest conversations with your healthcare team about your specific needs and your preferences. A registered dietitian can be such a valuable resource in helping you navigate all the, often confusing information out there about nutrition and really create a plan that's tailored just for you.
Absolutely. I mean, a dietitian can help you sort through the facts from the fads. Right? And that's really empowering. And speaking of empowering, I have a little challenge for our listeners. If you had to design like your own cancer-fighting diet based on everything we've talked about today, what would it look like?
Yeah.
What delicious, nourishing foods would you make sure to include?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd love for everyone to sit down and really think about that. Think about everything we've talked about, the importance of plant-based foods, healthy fats, and, most importantly, working with a professional to get that personalized guidance. And remember, this journey to, optimal nutrition, it's ongoing. It's not like you reach the destination and that's it.
Right. It's about constantly learning and adapting.
Exactly. There's always something new to discover, new ways to nourish your body and support your well-being.
Well, on that note, a huge thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive into popular diets, and how they relate to cancer. I think this has been so informative, and I hope our listeners are feeling empowered to take charge of their own nutrition,
I hope so too. And, stay curious, stay nourished, and stay well, everyone.
Love that. And keep those brains hungry for knowledge, right? We'll catch you all on our next deep dive.